All right, so those of you that have been following me on Instagram, you know what this is. And this is actually the insert on a massive conference table that I'm doing with Black Rifle Coffee. I reached out to them this winter to see if there was any way we could work together. And we actually came to the conclusion that they need a bigger and more epic conference table. So I came up with this. So a lot of you that follow me on Instagram have been making comments about this part specifically of the massive Black Rifle conference table that I've been building. If you don't follow me on Instagram, shame on you. But for those of you that do, a lot of the comments were, John, are we gonna get a full build video? John, how'd you get the bubbles out of the bullets? And John, why are you so awesome and handsome and great? Instead of just having you watch me build it, like we typically do here on this channel, I'm gonna walk you through some steps on how to do something similar yourself. So before we get into it, I just wanna preface that I will be using a gratuitous amount of ridiculously expensive and unattainable tools, as well as highly expensive materials. And if you don't like that, then you can actually don't go anywhere. Please stay around. Just check out the video. It's awesome. Just please stay. So the first part of the build, what we need to do is get all of the parts put together. I start off by doing a little bit of math and creating the outside circle, whatever you want to call it, which happens to be cut from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 12 parts, all cut at the right angle in order to give me the diameter of 50 inches that I was looking for. So I don't use anything as far as like biscuits or dominoes in this because I knew it was gonna be held together with the epoxy. So we just butt join all these bad boys together with a little bit of tight bond and some 3,000 pound toe straps. So do a little bit of sanding just to get the glue off the surface, and then I actually make a jig. I fasten the entire round to the table, and then I find the center point and I mark that in order to use a router jig to give me the inside and the outside diameters I'm looking for. The next parts are going to be the crosshairs, which are just some ripped down maple to match the rest of it, and I dowel those into place. Now moving on, the first ridiculously expensive tool that you're gonna see is my CNC. I use that to cut out all of the letters. If you don't have a CNC, you can go ahead and print the letters out to scale and use a bandsaw. My CNC actually doesn't have enough travel to get this done in one cut, so I end up using a bandsaw and then a flush trim bit and my oscillating spindle sander to clean up all of the letters. So because I'm using the inside circumference piece of the circle that is in the logo in order to hold the epoxy, I don't actually have to build a full form. So what I do instead is lay down the biggest piece of plywood I've got in the shop and laminate it essentially with this Tyvek tape that I can't pronounce, but obviously it's the most expensive thing I could buy, and the Canadians use it in all their videos that go viral, so I should definitely be copying that formula, right? So once I have all of those parts put down, what it actually does is allows the epoxy to release from the surface of the plywood much easier. I go ahead and add a shit ton of caulking to it to make sure it doesn't leak anywhere, because this epoxy is 1, expensive as all hell, and 2, it's extremely runny. It's like close to the consistency of water. There's not a ton of viscosity in it. A lot of big words there. Now for the fun part. Because we're American as around here, we've just got bullet casings everywhere. And you want to take as many of those as you possibly can and pour them right into your mold. Now, if you're not in the US, you can maybe fill it with syrup and hugs. So once everything is laid out and wherever you want it and you like the look, it's time for the epoxy.
I hope this is enough.
So because I can't measure, I ended up having to do 2 pours. We did one initial pour with the EPOXY liquid plastic, which is a very popular brand, but this is not sponsored. It's just what Woodcraft, who did sponsor this build, carries, and I purchased it from them. The manufacturer recommends 72 hours for that. So that's what we did. We let the first round sit for 72 hours, and then we came back and poured the second coat. That is incredible. I'm like, no way we're gonna need all of it. Oh, we're gonna need all of it. If you're wondering, well, John, where do the bubbles go? And do you vibrate or use a heat gun? You can use a heat gun to alleviate bubbles immediately, but the vibration of the table will actually not allow the EPOXY to set, because if it's in constant motion, it doesn't set up. So you have to just let it hang out, set.
It's time to demold. Pray for me. Oh, by the way, it's not light.
After everything's dry, you're gonna wanna grab a cup of coffee, a beer, whiskey, whatever floats your boat, and then stare at the project for a ridiculously long amount of time, because it's awesome.
Let's hope none of this breaks.
Built a lot of heavy shit in my day.
And this, does it look awesome on its slab home? Mother.
From there, you're gonna wanna get the most expensive slab flattening jig on the planet, and then go to town flattening this. Now I use a 2-inch surfacing bit in the most powerful router that I have, and I take about, I would say, a 1/16 of an inch per pass in order to get this thing flat on both sides. And while you're flattening, make sure you open all the doors to your shop so your gratuitously massive bearded friends can walk in and interrupt you in the middle of things.
What the frig you doing in here, builder?
Who goes there?
A table,
With bullets.
shelves.
With bullets. Flattening her up.
I wouldn't expect anything less than you building something exotic like this.
You know it, dude. Yeah, high-end, very, you know, I guess individualized community. That's what I do.
Yeah, specialized work.
Once it's flattened out, you're gonna then move over to your sander, and you're gonna sand for no less than 17 hours. I started 80 grit and then work all the way up to 320 dry on both sides. And then on the top, I actually wet sanded this to 4000 grit. I then sprayed it with a pre-catalyzed lacquer in order to get a buffing on the lacquer coating itself. And then I was able to actually wet sand that up to 4000 grit as well. And that's how I was able to get this thing to be crystal clear. And that's pretty much a wrap on this build. If you dig this, you're gonna wanna make sure you subscribe to see the full table build, because it's gonna be the most epic thing the internet's ever seen. I also wanna thank my sponsor on this project, Woodcraft. If you're looking for any of the products I use in this build, most of them are available there, and I got a link down in the description. Lastly, thank you one more time for tuning in. Go pound a coffee, and I'll catch you on the next one. In breaking news, today, John builds more awesome shit. This time with bullets.